Mr. Chairman, I'd like to respond to several of the comments that have been made by Democratic members of this committee. I would point out, first of all, on the 16 names, the chairman observed that, yes, the Biden administration is holding hostage $130 million for Egypt and demanding that 16 people be released from prison.
No, the chairman did not recognize that.
To be fair,
I did not recognize. Don't put words in my mouth that I didn't say.
Mr. Chairman, do you deny that they're withholding $130 million?
I did
do
not
you deny
say
that they're withholding $130 million?
I don't need to be cross-examined by you.
Well, you're cross-examining me. I'm speaking. You're cross-examining me, Mr. Chairman.
That you misstated.
You're interrupting me. You're interrupting me.
The chair will not allow.
Really?
The chair will not allow.
What will you not allow?
You to say something I did not say. I did not say. All I said is that there are 16
in the middle of a sentence. You're interrupting me in the middle of a sentence. Do you deny that they're holding the money hostage?
The senator will withhold.
How about you withhold? You're the one interrupting me. I'm speaking. You're interrupting me.
I will adjourn the meeting.
If you are afraid of my speaking and want to adjourn the meeting,
you are not allowed to put words in my mouth.
You are interrupting me.
I know you want to do this for your YouTube, for your presidential
You are interrupting me. Okay, that's an aspersion
of my character. But stop putting words that I have not said.
Again.
I did not say anyone is holding anybody hostage.
You are interrupting me again. Are you going to allow me to speak, Mr. Chairman?
Continue.
That's very kind of you. And I will say, Mr. Chairman, I appreciate your lecture on comedy when you interrupt me. All right, so let me speak more precisely, because I was in the middle of one sentence when you interrupted me. It is an established fact, publicly acknowledged, that the Biden administration is holding $130 million hostage in Egypt and demanding the release of 16 prisoners who are currently incarcerated. What the chairman just said is that I should be satisfied because when I asked for those names, the administration provided them in a classified document that members of this committee can read in a skiff that is hidden from the American people. Mr. Chairman, the fact that it's hidden from the American people is a problem. This is not a star chamber where we sit in smoke-filled rooms. Rather, the American people have a right to know about the radical agenda that Joe Biden and Kamala Harris are putting forward. And there's a reason it's classified. They don't want the names known. Why? Because, look, under Barack Obama, the Obama administration repeatedly and vocally supported the Muslim Brotherhood, a terrorist organization that murders Americans, that murders Israelis, that is virulently anti-Semitic. When we saw over 1 million people standing in the streets of Cairo, they were holding up signs saying America supports the Muslim Brotherhood because the Obama-Biden administration had a policy of supporting the viciously anti-American terrorists in the Middle East. Why does Joe Biden not want those names released? Because they can't defend the names on the list. And so for the chairman to say, you should be happy that they're hidden in a secret room if you want to defend them. Senator Kaine talked about accountability. Let's have some accountability. Let's talk about the 16 names, and the American people want to know why Joe Biden and Kamala Harris are trying to force our allies to release people who may well be a national security threat to the United States. Secondly, on the Abraham Accords, the chairman pointed out, said, well, there are members of the State Department who use those words, which is something I acknowledged in my remarks. Yes, there have been individual members of the administration who have defied those orders. Interestingly, what was missing from the chairman's remarks was even a syllable of a word denying that there was a written guidance saying, do not use the words Abraham Accords. And the reason I believe the chairman didn't deny it, it's been publicly reported in the media that those written directives went out. And why doesn't the State Department provide them? For the same reason they don't provide the list of 16 names. They want to hide it from the American people because they're embarrassed at the left-wing politics driving their policies. It is pure public relations that they're hiding that directive. They don't want the American people to read it. And third, there have been lots of speeches in high dudgeon about the delay in nominees. Now, I will note that many of the delays in ambassadors have been delays in nominations, that this administration has been incredibly slow in putting forward nominees to be considered. But I don't hide remotely from the fact that I have a hold on State Department nominees, and I have a hold for a specific reason that every member of this committee knows exactly what it is. And it is that Joe Biden and Kamala Harris are defying federal law. They are brazenly and unapologetically defying federal law to benefit Russia and Putin on Nord Stream 2. And the remarkable thing is, every member of this committee on the Democratic side of the aisle agrees with me on the substance and has said so on the record repeatedly, has voted on the record repeatedly. The members of this committee know the Nord Stream 2 pipeline, if it goes online, will hurt America, it will hurt Europe, and it will enrich Putin and any successor tyrants in Russia for generations to come. That's why we passed bipartisan legislation that Senator Shaheen and I have authored, not once but twice into law. And the Biden administration made what I believe is a generational geopolitical blunder in surrendering to Putin. Now, I would note also that for several months since August, I have had a written offer of compromise submitted to this administration. That if they want to break the logjams, it's very simple. Under CATSA, which members of this committee supported, indeed, I've given floor speeches quoting from multiple Democrats on this committee. CATSA provides, it is a statute that provides, if the administration wants to waive sanctions on Russia, it triggers an automatic override vote in Congress. And I've said it's very simple. If the administration will waive the sanctions under CATSA and trigger the override vote, I'll lift my holds. Multiple Democrats on this committee privately have told me they think my offer of compromise is very reasonable and the Biden administration should take it. Now, what hasn't happened, there haven't been any Democrats saying that publicly. And I understand it is difficult to oppose a president of your own party. So it's one thing to say it privately on the Senate floor. It's another thing to say it publicly. I'll point out on Nord Stream 2, when we had a Republican president, I was not shy about speaking out and putting pressure on a Republican president to stand up to Russia and Putin on this. And I would ask my Democratic colleagues to show the same willingness to do so for a Democrat when you know the Democrat is wrong and there is a reasonable offer of compromise that could break the logjam. But instead of doing so, the Democrats who have told me privately they think it's a reasonable compromise, they haven't said so publicly. Instead of putting pressure on their own Democratic president, we have Democrat after Democrat who come to the floor and they give speeches lambasting me. The chairman, I think I counted, it's the third time he asserts that apparently I'm not interested in Russia, I'm not interested in American national security. It's a presidential campaign, the chairman tells me. He says so repeatedly, impugning my integrity. And let me point out a final thing. Senator Kaine talked about accountability. I'm a big believer in accountability. If any of you think that I am somehow afraid to be accountable for fighting against decisions that are hurting American national security, you have missed the hours upon hours upon hours in which I've defended that decision on the Senate floor. There ain't no hiding what I'm doing because I believe it's the right thing to do, but accountability is accountability to each other, but it's ultimately to the American people. The senator from Virginia, I was in your state last night. There was an election in the state of Virginia last night where Glenn Youngkin was elected governor. I would note the chairman's state, New Jersey, had an election.
I have allowed the senator to continue for an enormous period of time. I'd ask you to wrap up because we do have a classified
I am wrapping
briefing.
up, Mr. Chairman. I am wrapping up. And my point is simple. Last night, in a political earthquake, the voters in Virginia elected a Republican governor. Last night, in a political earthquake, the voters of New Jersey may have done the same thing. I checked this morning. It's 1,500 votes separating the two, and they're still counting votes. The reason I believe voters in two states that have been blue for a long time went the other direction is because of the radical and extreme policies of Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. And I will point out this committee in saying we're not going to stand together fighting for the national security is defying the American people. The American people have a right to know if Joe Biden is trying to release terrorists, and simply the partisan loyalty of Democrats is not furthering the responsibility of this committee.
Thank you for the political lesson. Let me first say that holding $130 million is not by, it is pursuant to congressionally passed legislation. So you can't keep saying that it's not, it's congressionally passed legislation. Number two is I never said you should be happy that the names are available. You once again try to misclassify what the chair said. I just said that they are available to you and to any other member in the SCIF. I didn't say you need to be happy for it. And as it relates to Nord Stream 2, let me just say, what you're suggesting is that a member of the Senate, and in this case a member of the Senate in the minority, can dictate the policy to the executive branch in order to get their nominees through. Well, I've seen casting votes to suggest what that policy should be, but I have never seen the hostage-taking of career nominees in order to achieve them. With the thanks of the committee, this meeting is adjourned.